All right, everybody, so the first craft we're going to do is an embroidered sweatshirt with a little ghost. So you'll need a sweatshirt, an embroidery hoop, and then I'm going to use white, black, and green embroidery floss. So I have 4 strings that I'm gonna thread in my needle. Make sure you knot the end. And then I have my traced out design, which is a ghost with boo, perfect for Halloween. So I'm going to do a back stitch, which is extremely simple. You will see my needle come up through the back, and then it will go directly into the last hole I made. So it goes down into the hole, and you just pull it through, and you create a little line, which is perfect when you're trying to outline something. So once again, we're coming up and back through our last hole. So it's super simple. You'll get the hang of it very quickly. So I'm just going to speed up the process a little bit. Okay, and so to finish it off, I run my needle through some of my previous stitches a few times just to give it a little extra staying power, not powder, and then I double knot it. Sometimes I use my pinky to help get as close as I can to the stitch. And then we'll cut it off with some scissors. And next we'll move on to our white thread. We're still using 4 strings. And again, we're going to use the back stitch. So once again, we're coming up through the back and right back down into our previous hole. And then we'll finish it off again the same way. Gonna loop it through a few of those stitches we already have done, and then make 2 knots and cut off the rest. It's already looking so cute, but I'm gonna add some green eyes to him to make him a little bit more spooky. And there he is so cute. So of course you want to take your hoop off, and if it makes an imprint like mine did, it'll go away. All right, next we're going to do an embroidery and felt craft, which is very new and exciting to me. So we have our hoop, our floss, our felt, what I'm going to stitch on, a foam pad, my little scissors, and a felting tool, which is very necessary. I didn't realize it, but it is. All right, so we're gonna make these cute fall leaves. It was so fun to make. So I'm gonna pull off some red felt. You don't need too much because we're working pretty small. And then I'm gonna combine it with some gold felt. So I'm kind of just sandwiching these back on top of each other to really get the colors mixed in together. And once you have it at a color that you like, we're gonna just plop it down on our foam base and use our embroidery tool to pretty much stab it. That's the only way I can explain it. You want to make sure you're coming in and out at the same angle, but other than that, you're pretty much just poking it, and it's really amazing. It just starts forming shapes and becoming a lot more sturdy, and it was a really cool process. It was my first time with felting, so I ended up with this, and then I'm going to use my cutout leaf to help me shape my felt leaf. These little scissors are really handy to have. You can use larger scissors, of course, but the little ones really do help you get into the details. All right, so next I'm going to do a green leaf. So I have some dark green and light green felt. The same process as before. I'm just mixing it together to make there be a little bit more contrast, a little bit more interest in my leaf. Stabbing it with my tool. And then I'm using a different shaped leaf and cutting it out with my scissors. It is really fun and just like a whole new way to be creative. I had never explored felting before, but it's something I'm very interested in, and I think you can really do a lot of things with it. So it was definitely fun to explore a new way to be creative, because that's really the thing I'm most passionate about, is always learning more ways to be creative. And then here you can cut your own little indentions in the leaves to make them look a little bit more realistic. So that's what I'm doing here. And these are the leaves I ended up with. All right, so next I have my design, and I picked Have a Cozy Day. I just hand wrote it on there. And I am using this really pretty burnt orange thread. I have 5 strands of floss on there, which is kind of a lot, but I wanted it to be a little bit more chunky and cozy. Also, keep the 6th strand nearby because we'll end up using it later. So once again here I am doing the back stitch, nothing new. Great, so now this is my favorite part, was connecting the leaves. I'm going to arrange them kind of just in a circle around my design. I'm just sticking a needle very slightly through the bottom of the felt leaf. You want to make sure you can't see the thread coming up through the leaf. This is also where your 1 strand comes in handy if you have that left over, because I'm only using 1 strand. I want it to be very thin so you don't see it. And then I'm just going to repeat this process. If you are picky about what the back side of your hoop looks like, of course you can end your strand for every leaf. I'm not as picky, so I'm just traveling on to each leaf, because to me you can't see the back, but I know some people are picky about that, so it's just totally up to you. And this is how it turned out. I love it. It is so cozy. Definitely adds to my fall decor, and it was so fun to make. All right, and the last one is this macrame pumpkin pillow. This is kind of like, or it's not kind of, it's definitely fake embroidery. So we have macrame, a pumpkin cutout, my scissors, and pillowcase, and a glue stick. We're kind of cheating it. We could sew it, but it's just as easy to hot glue it. So I'm going to tape down my stencil just to make sure it doesn't move. And then I'm going to go ahead and lay out my macrame cord. My film got a little wild there, a little spooky. So I'm going to cut it off at the place where I need it, and I'm going to hot glue in sections around the pumpkin. Looking back, I wish I had just traced the pumpkin instead of leaving the paper stencil there, because the hot glue did end up sticking to the paper just a little bit. I was just a little too excited and should have thought ahead a little more. So pro tip, outline your stencil, don't use paper. So you'll see here I'm kind of struggling to get the paper off. It ended up okay, but definitely smarter just to trace it. So here I'm going to add a little dimension to my pumpkin, make it a little more lifelike by cutting some more macrame. And now I'm getting to sew it. So we want to make sure your correct sides are facing inward. That is very, very important. And then I'm pinning the corners, and I just used a sewing machine to sew around the edges. I sewed about an inch away from the edge, and now I'm turning it inside out. Your sewing does not have to be perfect, because mine certainly was not, and you were not able to tell. All right, so now we're going to stuff our pillow in. You want to make sure your pillow is, of course, the right size to fit inside. And then I chose to hand stitch the bottom. You could also use a fabric glue. I just didn't have one on hand. If you do choose to hand stitch, you want to make sure you really go over the edges well, especially for me, because my pillow was a little bit oversized for the pillowcase, but it ended up working out okay. And this is how it turned out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you recreate any of these, and hope you're enjoying fall. Bye.